Welcome to another Insider Special Report. It's a look ahead to 2019 National Signing Day. I'm Jarret Johnson. I'm joined by the mighty Joe Yeager. Joe, how you doing, man?
Not too bad, Jarret. Pretty darn good. How about you?
I'm good. Well, there's been some panic amongst Red Raider Nation about the lack of visitors the last couple weeks and the lack of noise, recruiting noise leading up to National Signing Day. The Red Raiders signed 11 recruits in the early period. They have 3 more commits, but that's not exactly a full class. So there are some fans that are, like I said, kind of panicking or nervous, at least concerned are the words we're seeing on the board about the recruiting class. What is your take? Are you any of those things right now about this recruiting class?
No. I mean, you know, in the first place, this recruiting class is not going to be typical of what this recruiting class signs, because it's just such an odd circumstance coming in right before the early signing period as a brand new group, having to try to hold that class together, keep it from falling apart completely. And then, I mean, the way this dual recruiting period is working out is most of your big guns are going to be signing in that early period. Right, so you're left with trying to fill half of your class or thereabouts with kind of what are, I hate to say it, but kind of the leftovers, the diamonds in the rough, so forth and so on. So it's a completely, odd situation, and this is not representative of what you're going to see going forward. I mean, basically the way I look at it and what I want to see is hopefully you do get to something like a full class, but you're not expecting any luminaries here. What you want out of a class like this is just get some guys who can be solid contributors, who are going to fit into the program and are not going to wash out and will be there, and if nothing else, stick around for 4 years and provide some good depth. So that, I mean, that's an important part of any football team, having those kinds of guys. Not everybody's going to be, Crabtree and Harrell and those sorts of guys and Mahomes and whatnot. So that's not what you're looking for from this class. Just get some guys in there who can help you out, who are going to stick around and be solid players. And, I think that they will probably come pretty close to fulfilling that goal when it's all said and done.
Yeah, the transfer portal and just how that's evolving, college football is evolving around that, the offseason, is interesting to me to follow. I mean, recruiting has really changed just in the last couple of years with the early period, with the transfer portal coming to be. I mean, it's really interesting times on the recruiting trail. So it'll be interesting to see how Matt Wells and his staff tap into that, because already have a prolific receiver from Virginia Tech coming out in March. So, I mean, he's going to have a lot of suitors, but at least you have a shot there. That'll be interesting to watch. Now, there are a handful of guys that Tech are still in on that I want to give some updates on. Stephen Parker being one of them. I talked with him recently. I know you're like some people like, oh, how many more updates are you going to do on Stephen Parker? But see, the flip side of that is if I don't provide the updates, then everybody's going to be, hey, why haven't we heard about Stephen Parker? So, bottom line is, it seems like every fan base has put in a crystal ball for them. You know what I mean? Nebraska has a guy who's predicted that that Parker's going to be there after he visited earlier this month. There's actually a guy from Texas who predicted that Stephen Parker's going to be going to go to Kansas after Emmett Jones was hired there. And Gabe Brooks, regional recruiting analyst who I respect very much, he also put in a prediction for Kansas. But I tell you what, I put a prediction in for Texas Tech a long time ago, and I've stuck by that, because every time I've talked with Stephen Parker, he's mentioned just the family quotient here, his grandma being here, friends being here, and in the end, I think honestly, I believe this coaching staff has done a lot to make his family feel at home here, and I think that's going to win him over in the end. That, and honestly being able to stay in Texas as opposed to going to Nebraska or up in Kansas. So that's just
look at the weather right now up in Kansas and Nebraska. How about that?
Absolutely. So I think that's going to be some good news. We'll have to see. He's going to announce. He told me after his visit to Kansas, which normally isn't a good sign, but it's right before National Signing Day on Wednesday. I believe either Sunday or Monday he's going to announce. So that's something to keep an eye on. Another name, obviously, is Keeyon Stewart, who's another guy who was committed to you before, who since decommitted. He seems to love every fan, but he's enjoying the recruiting process. Again, Utah, TCU, some other school, Louisville is another school he visited. I don't know if he's visiting this weekend. He originally was going to visit last weekend, but he bumped it to this weekend, he told me, but then I haven't heard from him. And honestly, I think he's a very strong lean. I put in a crystal ball prediction to TCU. I think that's where he's going. He's going to be a Horned Frog, which you hate to lose him to a Big 12 rival, but that's what's happening, especially at a position. If there's any position, Joe, that I'd be concerned about, that maybe not addressing with this signing class, it's defensive back. I mean, Alex Hogan's your only signee right now. You might get some other people added on here right at the end, but Velton Gardner's another guy. He's actually committed right now. He's from Dallas Skyline. He was a basically MVP, all-around great dual threat type quarterback, but of course he's being recruited as running back. He was just offensive MVP of the blue-gray game. Congratulated him. But he visited right before the early signing period, but didn't sign with Tech. There's another guy who's looking at Kansas because he's very tight with Emmett Jones, but I don't know if he's going to go to Kansas or not. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Running back's your other position of great need. You have some guys you've been looking at that you like, but I think Gardner would be considered the home run hit right here. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. You got the Roderick and Tejon coming back, and DeLeon, I believe, and yeah, I mean, as we've seen over the years with the injuries, I mean that's a position that is injury prone. Those guys take so much punishment. If you could get in another quality back like a Gardner like that, yeah, he'd be in the mix immediately, I'm sure, would have a shot at playing time as a freshman and could be a very valuable player.
Now, one position that you have done a really good job, or one place you have done a good job, or Wells has and his staff, is like the specialist. Because, I mean, you lost all your specialists last year. You lost not just Dominic Panazzolo, but Reed Bowman also transferred too. So you lost your two punters. You lost, obviously, Clayton Hatfield, your kicker. I mean, you needed new long snappers. You got at least two preferred walk-ons, I believe. Hayden Hood's one guy I talked to. And then Austin McNamara was the #1 punter in the country, rated by 24/7 Sports. He's also a kickoff specialist. He's probably going to kick off for you, and if he's not kicking the field goals, he's probably going to hold the field goals. So I mean, he's a big part of your special teams. That's a big piece, and I think we've seen, Tech fans have seen how important that is to winning and losing, to the bottom line there. So I think they've done a really good job of addressing that. Finally, Gavin Potter's a guy I was really hopeful for the Red Raiders. And I say was because he's a Kansas State commit. By all accounts, he had a great official visit to Manhattan last weekend, and then he just got offered by in-state Oklahoma State. I don't know if he's visiting this weekend or not. I don't believe he is, but if he is, then you have a shot. If he's not, then I think you have no shot. So Potter's one of those guys who's kept it pretty tight-lipped, which I respect, but in that regard, I don't know if he's visiting this weekend or not. But if you can get a Gavin Potter, he's a 3-star guy from Broken Arrow, fast, all-state guy. They won state, won undefeated, won all-state at Broken Arrow. He would be a perfect fit at your Raider position, outside linebacker position. So if they could land him, that would be a big piece. Yeah, if you can get Stephen Parker back in the fold, you address your special teams, a couple of nice offensive line additions. I really like Trey Cleveland at receiver. Tony Bradford just visited. He's going to sign with you. He was one of the best defensive players in the entire state. Who I think is undervalued just because he doesn't hit some measurables, but I think he's going to be a really good player for you. So there's some good pieces to this class. I think Matt Wells and his staff did a good job of getting some of these guys back in the fold, and we'll just have to see how it plays out on National Signing Day, and then what kind of transfers they add to the mix and just how they work things. But I don't personally, and I think it's obvious on the board, I don't think it's time to panic. I think let's give the new coaching staff a little more than 2 months to see what they could do on the recruiting trail, Joe. But great stuff from you as always. Thank y'all for watching, and until next time.